Therefore, there was a period of tremendous displacement, ethnic cleansing. My question is, what do you think, as a professor of history, the person who had the power are so hooked on the past, they don't look at the present. The future is in the hands of God, but they keep looking at the past. Remember the Maine, remember the Alamo, remember Pearl Harbor, remember the Holocaust. And when we are discussing semantic, a person just mentioned how the Gaza people are being massacred. Don't you think that we are rearranging the furniture on the Titanic? That the ship is sinking and we are like not human, looking the other side? I'd like to please comment.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the importance of history in this case is for two reasons. One is, as I mentioned in my talk, and I really borrow here from Edward Said, who said it, I think, for the first time, is that you can close the chapter, any chapter, even the worst chapter in your life, you can close it, provided the terrible things that you experience have ended. That there was a beginning, a middle, and an end to the story of your suffering. Unfortunately, in the Palestinian case, it continues. It continues. So it's not a history of the past. It's a history of the present. And secondly, all our efforts, if we focus on the present, we are in danger of looking at policies and not at ideologies. Because one thing which I hope differs politicians from activists like ourselves is that politicians can only relate in the nature of what they're doing to policies. They would say, this Israeli policy is not good, we would like to see another policy, this Israeli policy should be changed. So they will change one or two policies. But if you look at the ideology that produces the policies, and he would say, I want a change of the ideology, not a change of the policy. So that I won't come too late in the day when the policy would re-emerge. I have to understand where this ideology comes from. And for me, as an Israeli Jew, it's very important to understand what I call the noble impulse of the ideology. I was trying to chart a very clear picture here, which is not demonic, it's not satanic. You know, this is not just a group of people who like to kill other people, ethnically cleanse them. I need historical explanation to how a system was produced that creates this terrible reality on the ground. Because I believe people are good, but systems can be evil. That's what I believe.
Thank you again for coming. It's easier for me to understand why during the Cold War, Nixon, for example, was pro-Israel because there was a clear USSR, USA dichotomy. It kind of puzzles me how we could veto UN resolutions after UN resolutions, pro-Palestine, or at least pro-justice. And it just seems like, where's the impotence? Where's this rush of support for Israel coming?
Yeah, you see here, I'm glad you brought this question because I can defend history once more. It's very important to learn, I think, and study the history of US-Israeli relations. Very important to understand it. People forget that the initial American instinct, even as an international power, was not against the Palestinians, contrary to what people think. We have to remember that the Americans supported Arab national movements in the First World War, while Britain and France were still harboring the ideas of having colonies there instead of independent states. And it's very interesting that between 1948 and 1955, roughly, the American administrations were seriously considering what today we would call even an anti-Israeli policy. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Abba Eban created with a friend of his the AIPAC in 1954, 1955, because President Dwight Eisenhower was about to recognize the right of the Palestinian refugees to return. Many people don't remember that. The American State Department in 53-54 thought it was a terrible mistake to partition Palestine. It was a terrible mistake to support the state of Israel. And actually was looking for a way of finding a just solution that was based on Resolution 194 of the Palestinian right of return. And the Israelis were so alarmed that they recruited the Jews of America to create, as you know, a very powerful lobby. So history teaches us that there is no natural instinct of Americans to support the Israelis rather than the Palestinians. Having said that, of course, through the years, from 1955 until today, a very powerful lobby has made sure that the gut reaction of Americans would be to support Israel and not the Palestinians, together with this Christian Zionist abomination that appeared. We were always there, by the way, in the beginning of the 19th century, but this idea that I'm less interested in the way that these people think that by supporting Israel, they are precipitating the second coming of the Messiah. That is their business. I'm not an expert on that. But what drives me mad is, of course, the Israelis who like to support a group of people who, in their scenario, they would either be barbecued at hell or converted to Christianity as the best second solution. And yet, we invite these people to Israel to have annual conferences where these things are being chanted and predicted and prophesied in every corner. But it's a powerful element in American policy. Yet, I would say I'm an optimistic person, as I said. I'm not sure that we are not exaggerating the power of both these elements to our determinant. We should think that part of the success of the pro-Israeli lobby is the lack of a pro-Arab lobby. And we should not be threatened by words like lobby. And I think we have enough of a coalition now, progressive Jewish forces in America, the Muslim communities, the Arab communities, liberal Americans, I think can unite and provide an alternative to the American policy, rather than sort of living in this atmosphere that there is these powerful, and they are powerful, these powerful organizations which make it all, tells us also to determinist people who think that there's no way we can change American policy. I'm sure that since in the 1950s American policy went one way and then it went another way, there's still a hope that the gut, as you very nicely described it, that the instinct reaction would be different from the one we get.
What is holding Israel back from completing the ethnic cleansing of Palestine? Why don't they simply herd the Palestinian Arabs over the Jordanian border or the Egyptian border, or more effectively, do like the Turks did with the Armenians, herd them out into the Sinai desert and let them die there?
Yeah. Well, I think that the Israelis have one big inhibition, and that is their wish to be part of the what they would call the community of civilized states. There is a certain self-image and an external image which is very dear to the Israelis. And that is the image of being the only democracy in the Middle East. And there are certain limits that you have to keep in mind. And time, as they see it, is on their side, unlike in 1948. And I think what we have to understand today, unlike 1948, is the Palestinians are fragmented. And different Palestinian groups constitute different kinds of threats on Israel. Now you can see what the Israelis do when a certain Palestinian group constitutes a threat in their eyes. See the Gaza Strip. What's happening today in the Gaza Strip is far worse than ethnic cleansing. This is a genocidal policy. So they are doing what you think that they are not doing. They're doing it. But they're only doing it to the people who they think are now in immediate danger. But believe me, if they would think that anyone in the West Bank or inside Israel or in the refugee communities around Israel